Funny thing about rules. Everyone thinks they're carved in stone, immutable, sacred. This is how it's always been, they say, clutching the little handbook like it's the universe itself. But here's the problem. Rules aren't written in stone. They're written in fear, in control, in the quiet little agreements people make to keep the world predictable. And every once in a while, someone comes along who doesn't fit. Someone who bends without breaking. Someone who makes the old rules look outdated. Rules only change when someone makes them irrelevant. That's the thing nobody wants to say out loud. They like to pretend rules are sacred, holy, universal. But deep down, everyone knows they're just agreements. Agreements that work until they don't. They're designed to keep people in line, to keep the game predictable. And as long as everyone plays along, the game stays the same. But the moment someone shows up who doesn't play by those rules and still wins, the whole illusion starts to crack. You know why most people never see a rule change. Because they never push hard enough to make the rule look stupid. They live their whole lives trying to fit inside the frame, never realizing the frame was never built for them. And when you play a game that wasn't built for you, every move you make is already rigged. But if you push hard enough, if you survive long enough doing things your way, the rule starts to look flimsy. And then people in power start asking themselves a dangerous question. Why are we still doing it this way? Here's the truth. They don't change the rules because they like you. They change them because you've made them useless. You've broken them without even trying. You've proven that they can be bent, twisted, or ignored, and the sky doesn't fall. That's dangerous. That's contagious. And they know if they don't rewrite the script, others might start noticing the cracks too. And when a rule loses its grip, when people stop believing in it, it doesn't die quietly. Oh no, it fights. It tries to pull you back in line. It throws obstacles at you. It whispers in your ear, reminding you of all the reasons you should just follow along. But if you keep going, keep breaking its grip, you force it into a corner. You make it admit it can't control you anymore. Most people think breaking a rule is about rebellion. No. Breaking a rule is about demonstrating something bigger, that the rule never had the power. You did. The rule was just the leash, and once you show you can run without it, The leash becomes a joke. They have to make a new one that fits you, one that allows the world to keep spinning without pretending the old chain was still in place. And here's the part that really stings for them. You don't even have to announce what you're doing. You don't have to make speeches or wave flags. All you have to do is keep moving forward, making choices they swore were impossible. And every time you succeed where their rules said you couldn't, you rip a page out of their book and toss it in the fire. Eventually, there's nothing left for them to hide behind. That's when they quietly, reluctantly start rewriting. They don't thank you. They don't give you credit. They'll probably pretend they thought of it themselves. But you'll know the truth. You'll see it in the way the game feels different now. You'll see it in how suddenly what was once against the rules is now acceptable. You'll see it in the way doors open that were welded shut before. And you'll know it's not because the rules were merciful. It's because you made them irrelevant. You didn't fit the system. You forced it to adapt. That's the thing people never see coming. They think the system is this all-powerful, unshakable machine that swallows everyone whole. And for most people, that's exactly what happens. They go in, they get processed, and they come out looking just like everyone else. Same speech, same behavior, same safe little dreams. But then someone like you walks in, and suddenly the machine starts to grind. It chokes. It stalls. It wasn't built for someone who refuses to move like the rest of the pieces. You weren't supposed to survive in their structure. You weren't supposed to get this far without playing by their steps. The system is designed to reward compliance, to punish deviation. But every time it tried to box you in, you found another way out. Every time it thought it had you figured out, you changed the pattern. That's when the cracks started showing. Because once they realize they can't force you into the shape they want, they're faced with an uncomfortable truth. The only way to keep the game running is to make room for you. See, most people think adaptation is a sign of flexibility. No. Adaptation is a sign of fear. When the system adapts to you, it's because it realizes ignoring you won't work. Crushing you won't work. You've proven yourself too resilient, too unpredictable. So instead of wasting its energy trying to eliminate you, it shifts. It bends. It pretends it was always supposed to be this way. But deep down, it knows you backed it into a corner. Forcing the system to adapt isn't about being loud or reckless. It's about being impossible to absorb. It's about showing up again and again, breaking every quiet expectation they had for you. You don't give them the satisfaction of fitting in. You don't give them the comfort of knowing where you'll land. And because of that, they have to make new rules, new lanes, just so they can keep track of you. And here's the thing. They'll never admit you caused the change. They'll reframe it. They'll call it progress, or innovation, or modernization. They'll tell themselves it was a natural evolution, a decision they made because they're so wise and forward thinking. But you'll know better. You'll remember the resistance, the locked doors, the dismissive smirks. You'll remember how hard they fought to keep you out until they realized they couldn't. Every time the system changes for you, it's an unspoken confession, a confession that you were too much for their design, that their rules weren't strong enough to contain you, that their boundaries weren't built to hold someone who refuses to accept them as truth. And once that happens, the balance shifts. Suddenly, they're reacting to you. Suddenly, you're the one setting the tempo. And this is where it gets interesting. Because once they adapt for you, others notice. Others start asking questions. If the system bent for them, why can't it bend for me? That's when your existence becomes dangerous. Not just to the rules, but to the illusion that the rules were unbreakable. You didn't just survive the system, you rewired it. You forced it to acknowledge a player it couldn't control. And that changes everything, whether they like it or not. Being chosen means becoming the exception, not the example. People love the idea of a chosen one, but only when that chosen one fits their story. They want a neat little hero who follows the rules, plays the part, and makes everyone feel comfortable. But if you're really chosen, you don't make people comfortable. You make them question everything. You don't fit into the story. They have to rewrite the story around you. And that's where the tension starts. The difference between an example and an exception is simple. An example can be copied. An exception can't. An example is safe, predictable. You can study it, replicate it, even mass produce it. An exception. That's chaos. That's lightning in a bottle. You can't explain it, you can't recreate it, and you definitely can't control it. And people hate that. They hate when someone exists outside the blueprint, because it reminds them that the blueprint isn't the law. It's just a suggestion. When you're chosen, it's not because you checked the right boxes or followed the right steps. It's because something about you disrupts the pattern. You make the old way look fragile. You make people who believed in the rules start to wonder if maybe the rules were never as solid as they thought. And that's dangerous, because once doubt creeps in, it spreads. But here's the catch. Being the exception means you don't get the comfort everyone else gets. You don't have a path laid out for you. You don't have a map. You're walking into places nobody's been before. And that means you'll take hits no one else can imagine. People will misunderstand you. They'll resist you. They'll try to shove you into their mold, just so they can feel like they understand you. And when you don't fit, they'll call you wrong, broken, unstable. You see, they need you to be an example, because examples can be controlled. An example can be taught in classrooms, turned into a motivational poster, used as proof that anyone can do it if they just work hard. But if you're the exception, you destroy that narrative, because if what you are can't be taught or copied, then their whole comfort system collapses. They can't promise anyone the same results, because you didn't get here by their formula. You got here by breaking it. And that's what being chosen really is. It's not a medal, it's a weight. It's carrying something no one else can carry, moving through storms that would crush most people. It's standing in places where the ground hasn't been built yet, and somehow finding balance anyway. It's knowing that no matter how much they want to package you up and turn you into a success story they can sell, you'll never fit in their box. They'll watch you closely. They'll try to learn from you, hoping they can bottle whatever it is you have. But they'll never get it, because it's not in your technique or your process or your habits. It's in the way you see the world differently. It's in the way you refuse to be contained, even when it would be easier. It's in the way you stand alone without waiting for permission. That's what makes you the exception. And that's why they'll never truly understand how you became who you are. Power changes the way people look at you, but divine power changes the way the Ev world works around you. See, when someone ordinary walks into a room, people glance up, size them up, and go back to whatever they were doing. But when you carry the kind of weight that doesn't come from titles or money, when it's the kind of authority stamped on your soul from somewhere higher, everything shifts. Conversations pause, eyes linger, the air gets heavier, like the room itself knows it's hosting something it can't quite name. It's not the kind of presence you can fake. People try. Oh, they'll wear the sharp suits, master the confident walk, perfect the polished tone. But real authority isn't loud. It isn't dressed up. It doesn't need to convince anyone. It's in the way you stand still and the noise dies down on its own. It's in the way people feel their spine straighten when you look their way. That's the difference between human-made power and the kind that's been assigned from somewhere above. And here's the thing, this kind of power doesn't play by the usual rules. People in earthly positions of authority can be bribed, flattered, intimidated. They can be predicted, but divine power, it's untouchable. You can't sway it. You can't rush it. You can't reason with it. It moves when it's supposed to, and it stops when it's supposed to. And if you're the one carrying it, you're not just working by your own clock anymore. You're on something bigger's schedule. Of course, people will test you. They'll poke at your resolve, waiting to see if you're just another ambitious dreamer in over their head. They'll try to drag you into the mud, to prove you're just like everyone else. But they don't understand you didn't pick this. You didn't scheme your way into it. You were picked. And that means their games don't work on you because the rules they're used to, they don't apply here. When that kind of calling is on you, the world starts rearranging itself in ways you can't explain. Opportunities come from places you weren't even looking. People cross your path, not by accident, but by design. Doors open that you didn't even know existed. And every now and then, someone powerful, really powerful, will look at you differently, not as competition, not as prey, but as something necessary. That's when it hits them. Whatever's backing you is bigger than them. They might not say it out loud, but they feel it. It's in the way their voice softens mid-sentence, the way they measure their words before speaking to you. It's not fear of you. It's fear of what's behind you. They can't explain it, but they know better than to underestimate it. And the more you walk in that kind of presence, the more you realize you're not just moving for yourself anymore. Your steps have weight. Your decisions ripple further than you can see. One word from you can tilt the direction of someone's life. One choice can shift an entire chain of events. That's what real, unshakable, God-backed power feels like. It's not about dominance. It's about inevitability. And once people sense it, they understand they're not just dealing with a person. They're dealing with a force. People think change happens in slow motion, like it gives you a polite warning first. Some gentle nudge, a whisper in the dark, a little time to prepare. But the truth is, when the rules change, they don't send out invitations. They don't announce themselves with fanfare. One day, the world works one way, and the next day, it doesn't. The ground you've been walking on for years just tilts. And you're left standing there, wondering if the floor moved, or if it was you all along. Now imagine those rules aren't just human rules, laws, traditions, social etiquette. Imagine they're the big rules, the ones nobody even questions because they've been around since the beginning. You know, that's just how it is kind of rules. And then, out of nowhere, those rules bend for you. Not for a group, not for a movement, not for a generation. For you. The system itself looks down, points at you, and says, "All right, let's make an exception." That's not luck. That's disruption. And disruption makes people nervous. They'll look at you differently. Not with admiration, not even with envy, but with suspicion. Because if the rules can be altered for you, what does that say about everything they've built their lives on? They've been playing a game, memorizing every regulation, perfecting every move, only to find out the game can be rewritten mid-play, and you're the reason. The strange part, you didn't ask for it. You didn't send in a request form to have the universe rearrange itself. You were just doing what you do, walking your path, and then suddenly, paths opened that weren't supposed to exist. Obstacles that should have stopped you just didn't. People who should have had the final say didn't even get a vote. And deep down, you know, this isn't random, this is deliberate. Someone up there shifted the pieces because you were meant to move forward, and no one, not even the so-called untouchables, could stop it. But here's where it gets tricky. When rules are changed in your favor, it's not just an opportunity, it's a responsibility. You've stepped into a space where the usual boundaries don't apply. But that also means you're walking through territory nobody's mapped before. There's no precedent, no safety net. No, this is how it's done. You are the precedent now, and that terrifies people. Because once you prove the rules can bend, others will start wondering if maybe they can bend too. And oh, that's when the resistance comes. Not from the weak. They'll watch from the sidelines. Not from the powerless. They'll whisper in the shadows. No. The pushback comes from the gatekeepers, the ones who've spent their entire lives enforcing the old rules, guarding the old systems. They'll try to frame you as dangerous, reckless, unworthy. They'll remind you over and over of how things are supposed to be. Because if they can convince you to step back inside their boundaries, the world snaps back into a shape they understand. But the truth, once the rules shift for you, you can't unsee it. You can't go back to pretending the old limits were real. You've seen behind the curtain, and you know. Boundaries aren't always barriers. Sometimes they're just placeholders, waiting for someone to walk past them so they can disappear. And when that happens, it's not about arrogance, and it's not about rebellion. It's about walking in a reality that was always possible, but only became visible when you arrived. Oh, this is rich. You ever feel like the universe, no, scratch that, like something way bigger than this cracked circus of a world is humming a tune? Not some sweet lullaby or fancy choir nonsense. No, no, no. I'm talking about a wild, raw, spine-snapping melody, a song about you. Yeah, you. And it's not playing in some distant cathedral or polished stage. It's dropping right now in the middle of your beautiful disaster of a life. You are the melody, not the mistake. That's the twist, isn't it? All this time, you've been walking around like some broken note, like a skipped beat in someone else's symphony, thinking you were the background static, the scratch in the vinyl. But what if, just what if, you're not the glitch? What if you're the part that makes the whole damn song unforgettable? You ever hear a track so raw, so offbeat, so messy it sticks in your head for days? That's not an accident. That's art with its teeth showing. See, the world's got this strange obsession with perfection. Every line has to rhyme, every note in tune, every move rehearsed. But you were never meant to be auto-tuned into someone else's harmony. You were meant to crack the speakers. You were meant to rattle the floorboards. You're the kind of sound that makes people uncomfortable because it doesn't ask for permission to be loud. And when they don't understand it, they label it a mistake. They say you're too much, too loud, too weird, too broken. But all they're really saying is, I can't handle this kind of real. They tell you to quiet down, to get in line, to blend in with the choir, but you weren't built for background. You're not the filler track between hits. You're the whole damn album, the live version, the one that doesn't follow the script, but makes the crowd feel something. And deep down, you know that. That ache in your chest, that's not regret. It's the echo of a song you've been ignoring, the one that's been waiting for you to stop mimicking, start owning your sound. People will try to remix you into something digestible. They'll take your pain and slap a chorus on it. They'll cut out the messy parts and package what's left as inspirational. But that's not you. That's a cover. A cheap knockoff of something wild and divine. Because you're not here to sound like everyone else. You're here to remind them what it means to be alive. Off-key, off-script, and completely impossible to ignore. Mistakes? Oh, you've made them good. So has every great song. You think beauty comes from being flawless? No. Beauty comes from the moment the note almost breaks, but doesn't. That split second where it wavers, then finds its footing and roars back louder than before. That's your story. That's your sound. Every wrong turn, every misstep, every cracked lyric in your life, it wasn't failure. It was flavor. It was tension. It was what gave your melody depth. You ever hear a song and just know the artist lived it, felt it, bled for it? That's you. That's your gift. You've been through enough to write symphonies in silence, and yet you keep shrinking like you're some fluke in the system. But you're not a glitch. You're the remix that flips the whole game. You're the proof that beauty isn't clean, it's chaotic. It screams and whispers in the same breath, and the people who hear it, the real ones, they'll know. Because deep down, they've been humming the same rhythm, but never had the guts to turn it up. You keep waiting for someone to give you the signal to tell you it's okay to be loud, to be seen, to let the full force of your voice shake the room. But no one's coming. The studio's already recording, the mic's been hot, and that little tremor you feel every time you think about showing up as your full, unfiltered self, that's the drop. That's the beat building. That's the universe counting down to your part in the song. So stop playing small. Stop editing yourself out of your own soundtrack. Every time you say, I'm not enough, you hit mute on a masterpiece. Every time you apologize for who you are, you skip the best verse. The world doesn't need another perfect melody. It needs you. The raw version, the live session, the one-take miracle that doesn't hit every note right, but hits every soul hard. The divine doesn't write quiet songs for loud souls. And you, oh, you were born loud. Not volume loud, not attention-seeking loud. No, no. You were born with that kind of noise that rattles walls without a single word. The kind of presence that doesn't whisper in a room. It hums under the surface, makes people twitch without knowing why. But here you are, shrinking like your fire's too much for the world to handle. Like you've got to turn the volume down to be loved. What a joke. See, when something bigger than this world stitches your story into existence, it doesn't hum lullabies for the tame and tired. It crafts anthems, battle cries, thunderstorms in human form. You think your chaos is an accident? You think that restlessness in your bones is a flaw? That was written in. That's the beat drop. That's the drum line behind your name. You weren't designed to tiptoe. You were built to stomp, to echo, to shake the ceiling when you speak, even when your voice trembles. But of course, they don't like that. The system, the society, the sanitized sheep, they don't like noise unless they can control it. So they label your energy as too much, your passion as crazy, your truth as inconvenient, and little by little you start believing it. You start silencing yourself in exchange for peace. But it's not real peace. It's sedation. A slow choke wrapped in polite expectation. They want your light just dimmed. They want your fire just contained. But that's not how you were scored. You've been muffling a song that was never meant to be background noise. You think divine intention gets nervous? You think whatever force crafted the galaxies trembled when it made you? No, it turned the dial up. It looked at your chaos and smiled. It knew the world needed something disruptive, something unpredictable, something that couldn't be ignored, so it made you. Not for comfort, for impact. And now here you are, trying to rewrite yourself into something soft, something manageable. But let's be honest, when you play small, it doesn't feel right, does it? You get sick in the quiet. Your skin itches when you fake it. That's not guilt. That's your original sound trying to break through the static of everybody else's opinions. That's the divine beat pounding at your rib cage, begging you to stop lip-syncing a life that doesn't match your song. It's wild, isn't it? How people will beg for authenticity, for truth, for realness. But the moment it shows up raw and untamed, they flinch. They scramble to cover it up, make it palatable, marketable. But the divine doesn't care about market trends. It's not writing hits for the charts. It's writing revolutions in blood and breath and spine. You are not a single. You are an experience. A full-blown sonic storm wrapped in human skin. You weren't meant to walk into rooms unnoticed. You were meant to shift the atmosphere. Not by screaming, not by forcing, but just by being. And if they can't handle your frequency, maybe they were never supposed to hear it. Maybe they weren't tuned for this level of transmission. But someone is. Somewhere out there, there's a soul that's been waiting to hear exactly what you sound like when you stop editing yourself, when you stop performing silence. You keep asking why you feel out of place, why nothing fits, why your voice shakes when you try to be normal. It's because your song wasn't written in lowercase. It wasn't arranged in whispered tones and acoustic strings. Your music crashes like waves. Your energy howls like wind through shattered windows. And every time you hold it back, you betray the divine composer that trusted you with this kind of volume. So why pretend to be soft when your truth is volcanic? Why dim your brilliance just to avoid making someone else squint? You were not made for quiet corners. You were made to erupt, to disrupt, to crack open the silence and force people to listen, not with ears, but with something deeper, something primal, something holy. And if they call that chaos, good. Chaos is the prelude to creation, always has been, always will be. Your sound might scare them, might confuse them, but it was never for them in the first place. It was for the ones who forgot they were loud too, for the ones who buried their thunder just to be loved, for the ones who need someone like you to give them permission to turn the volume back up. Trusting fully means surrendering control. Oof, that word. Control. Tastes like safety, doesn't it? Feels like a seatbelt in a car you're not even driving. People cling to it like it's armor, like they're actually steering something in this cosmic carnival of uncertainty. But let me tell you a secret. They're not in charge. Never were. The whole, I've got this under control thing, that's the punchline. That's the setup for the fall. The harder you grip, the more it slips. The tighter you hold the reins, the more the horse drags you face first through the dirt. Now trusting, that's a whole different beast. That's not white-knuckling your way through life. That's not spreadsheet faith. That's diving headfirst into the chaos with nothing but a laugh and a heartbeat. You think surrender looks weak? Oh no, it's brutal. It's blood under the fingernails kind of strength. Because giving up control isn't waving a white flag. It's setting the whole idea of control on fire and dancing in the ash. It's saying, I don't need to know how this ends. I just know I'm not the one writing the script. But most people, they want blueprints, guarantees, a neat little plan with bullet points and a risk assessment. They want to trust only if it still lets them drive. They want to believe, but not if it costs them comfort. So they dress their fear up as logic. They say they're just being cautious. They call it being realistic. But you dig deep enough and you'll find it. It's fear. Fear of being powerless. Fear of letting go. Fear that if they're not holding the strings, the whole thing might collapse. But here's the punch. You're already not in control. You never were. Life doesn't ask you for directions. It doesn't care about your backup plan. It throws curveballs when you're looking the other way and calls it Tuesday. So the real question is, what are you holding on to that's already dragging you under? What illusion are you protecting that's costing you peace? Because full trust, real trust, means letting go even when it doesn't make sense, especially when it doesn't make sense. You can't fake surrender. You can't pretend to trust with one foot out the door and call it faith. You're either all in, or you're rehearsing control in a costume. And the scariest part? There's no guarantee. That's the fun part, if you're twisted enough to love the ride. That's the thrill. Trust is stepping out without a net, hearing the creak of the rope and still moving forward. Not because you're sure, but because something deeper than fear said go. People love to say, I'll trust when I feel ready. But readiness is a liar. Readiness never shows up. It hides behind conditions and keeps you parked at the starting line while the whole world races past. The only real green light is choice. You choose to trust or you don't. You surrender or you stay stuck pretending you're safe while life quietly burns down your little illusion of control. And here's the kicker. When you finally let go, when you finally drop the act and hand over the wheel, things start moving. Not always how you pictured, not always clean or pretty, but real, raw, alive. you start breathing again. You start waking up without that iron grip around your throat. You realize the control you were killing yourself to maintain was never keeping you safe, it was keeping you small. Because control keeps everything in a box. It locks the door on miracles. It shuts the blinds on possibility. But trust? Trust tears the roof off. It invites the storm. It says, let's see what happens when I stop pretending to be God and start acting like someone who actually believes there's a bigger plan at play. And that, my friend, is when things get interesting. That's when the real story starts to unfold. Not the one you tried to write, but the one that was written in fire and breath long before you took your first step. A story that doesn't need your control, just your courage. Faith rarely feels safe, and why should it? It was never designed to hold your hand and sing lullabies while you drift comfortably through life. No, faith is that wild-eyed stranger who kicks down your door at midnight and whispers, "Let's go." It doesn't knock. It doesn't ask if you're ready. It just drags you out into the cold. With nothing but a half-packed bag and a heartbeat that doesn't know whether it's excited or terrified. That's the point. If it felt safe, it'd just be logic with a halo. You've been told faith is this cozy little candlelight feeling, right? Something soft, something sweet, something people carry gently like it might break. But real faith, the kind that shakes bones and rewrites history, that kind of faith burns like gasoline and doesn't care what it scorches. It's not a feeling, it's a furnace. And when you really step into it, you don't feel warm, you feel exposed, vulnerable, shaky, because suddenly you're walking on something invisible, something that doesn't promise comfort, only meaning. They want to package it, of course, put it in cute little quotes and tidy devotionals. They want you to think it's all smiles and sunshine, but those people haven't been in the trenches with it. Real faith doesn't show up when things are easy. It shows up when nothing makes sense, when everything's gone quiet, and the only thing louder than your doubt is the whisper that says, keep moving. It's the voice you hear when you've got no map, no plan, and the lights just went out. That's faith's territory. That's its playground. And oh, how people hate that. How they squirm at the thought of not knowing. We've built entire empires on certainty. Charts, strategies, 5-year plans, risk assessments. We crave control because it gives us the illusion we're safe. But faith doesn't play by those rules. It doesn't care about your spreadsheets. It doesn't care about your comfort zone. In fact, the second you start getting comfortable, faith will flip the table just to remind you who's in charge. It's that kind of party guest. You keep asking for clarity, for a sign, for some cosmic guarantee that stepping forward won't hurt. But that's not faith. That's negotiation. That's trying to sneak control in through the back door. Real faith doesn't come with fine print. It's messy. It's wild. It's walking on water while everything inside you screams that you're about to drown. But you don't. Somehow you stay up. Somehow you stay up. Somehow the invisible holds. Not because you're sure, but because you moved anyway. Most people never get there. They trade real faith for fake safety. They build tiny little lives wrapped in bubble wrap and call it wisdom. But they're not living. They're hiding. Afraid to risk. Afraid to jump. Afraid to believe in something bigger than what they can see. And sure, it might be safer. But it's also silent, dull, lifeless, because you can't hear heaven through walls of fear. And here's the cruel irony. They call the dangerous thing reckless, but the real danger is staying stuck, rotting in comfort, decaying in predictability. At least faith moves. At least faith breathes. At least it dares you to become something more than just another face in the crowd. Faith says, I know it doesn't make sense. Do it anyway. It doesn't wait for permission. It doesn't need applause. It just walks. Bleeding, limping, laughing, whatever it takes. But it keeps going. You think people with strong faith are fearless? No. They're terrified every single step, but they take it anyway. That's what makes it powerful. Not that they don't feel the fear, but that they don't let it be the boss. That's what you've got to learn. Fear can sit in the passenger seat, but it doesn't get to touch the wheel. Faith drives. Every time. Even if the road disappears. So don't confuse safety with security. You can be wrapped in layers of false protection and still be completely lost. Or you can be out there on the edge, unsure of everything but that small, defiant voice that won't shut up. The one that says, there's more. That's the voice of faith, and it never sounds safe. It sounds like risk. Like fire, like something that might just set your whole life ablaze so it can finally mean something. You think silence means absence, that just because it's quiet, nothing's happening, that the lack of noise means you've been abandoned, forgotten, tossed into the cosmic junk drawer with all the other broken pieces. That's how we're wired, right? If we don't hear something, we panic, we assume the worst. Like toddlers in a dark room screaming for a light switch, we equate stillness with neglect, when in reality, silence is where the real work begins, to where things shift. But it's never comfortable. Oh no, silence. It's a mirror. It forces you to sit with the chaos you've spent your whole life distracting yourself from. When everything goes quiet, you start listening differently, not with your ears, with your scars, with your regret, with your memory of all the times you should have fallen apart but didn't. And in that stillness, something starts moving, not outside you, inside. You begin to realize that maybe the silence isn't empty at all. Maybe it's full of things you've been avoiding, full of hard truths and deeper questions, and maybe, just maybe, that silence isn't the absence of God. Maybe it's His breath held, waiting to see if you'll actually stay still long enough to hear something beyond your own noise. But of course, that's not what we want. We want signs, thunder, skywriting. We want the heavens to post a status update just for us. Don't worry, I've got it all handled, just relax, but that's not how this works. There are no neon arrows, no confirmation emails from the universe, just this eerie, maddening hush, where you're supposed to somehow trust, and oh, how that drives people mad. Because if they're not being spoon-fed answers, they spiral. They assume silence means failure, silence means punishment, silence means you're alone, but that's not it. Silence is strategy, it's design, it's tension before the shift. Think of it like music. You know the most powerful part of a song? The rest, the space between the notes, that moment just before the drop, when everyone holds their breath. That's what this is. You're in the rest. The drop's coming, but first, you wait. You sit in it. You learn to breathe there. You start to recognize that the silence isn't working against you. It's carving something out of you, making room, rearranging your insides so that when the sound returns, you're ready to actually hear it, not just with your ears, with your soul. But silence has teeth. It doesn't just wait patiently. It chews through your illusions, your need for control, your dependency on validation. And as it tears those things away, what's left is raw, vulnerable, exposed. And that's where trust is either born or buried. Because now, in this stillness, you're being asked to believe without proof, to walk without a flashlight, to keep going without a map. And the world's gonna call you delusional for that. They're gonna tell you it's irresponsible to move forward with no guarantees. But those people, they've never met the fire that lives in your chest. They've never heard the whisper that doesn't use words. They've never stared into the silence long enough to realize it's not empty, it's holy. And let's be real, silence doesn't mean the absence of noise. It just means the absence of distractions. And once they're gone, what are you left with? Just you, your thoughts, your fears, your hopes, and the quiet hum of something greater that's been there the whole time, just waiting for you to shut up long enough to notice. It doesn't shout, it doesn't beg, it waits, because that's what power does. It doesn't perform, it doesn't need to prove anything, it just is. And once you learn to sit in that silence, once you stop flinching every time life goes quiet, you start to hear it too. The rhythm underneath the static, the pulse that says, you're still in it. You're not lost, you're just in the part where you grow. Because see, anybody can believe when things are loud, when the signs are flashing and the crowd's cheering. But belief in the silence, that's rare. That's forged. That's the kind of faith that doesn't shatter when the music stops. That's the kind that survives the waiting room, the desert, the long night with no stars. That's the kind that makes you dangerous. Because once you learn that silence isn't your enemy, it becomes your training ground. It becomes the space where you stop being a victim and start becoming something else entirely. Something unshakable. Something that doesn't need noise to know it's heard.